Hey folks, how you doing? It's Jovan Hutton Pulitzer. Thanks for joining me tonight. You know, the last time I did a series with an attorney that wrote a book that all of y'all raved about, hearing from her explaining this issue with our judicial process and basically unchecked power. So we decided to do a 10-part series on the topic of our courts, because I believe most people like you and I actually believe, hey, we may be in the midst of a judicial crisis at the moment. And I think it's important, as we all go through this together, is we just have to figure out what are all the technicalities, everything that's going on, because, you know, sometimes we just don't understand the process and we want it now, and we don't understand why it is taking so long for things to go through the court. And so that's why we're going to be doing this 10-part series. And of course, joining me, I'm going to drop in here. So you're going to do it. You're going to be able to ask questions a little later on into the stream. But I want to point out to everybody, first, just so you understand, you've seen her before on the program. And I want you to go, if you would, please check out her book. And I'm going to remind you what that is in a minute. Susan, hey, welcome to the program. Susan, do me a favor. Give everybody just a good top level of your background and what led you to writing the book.
First of all, thank you for having me on. I'm very honored and I'm very humble. I'm one of your biggest fans.
Thank you very much.
I really thank you. So I am a former prosecutor. I was an adjunct professor. When I had my own practice, litigation practice, I was in the appellate trial and part of the DA's office. And I had my litigation practice, which addressed complex litigation and some family law litigation and protecting children. And I had a lot of different interesting cases. And then I also was very involved with the court system in many aspects. And then I just saw what was transpiring, and I was very concerned about it. So I felt that a book needed to be written. And so I wrote it. And the book is a guide, and it's a guide through our court system. And it is a blueprint, really, for how a court system can be weaponized if in the hands of the wrong people with no oversight, unchecked power. And so that's my story.
So let me show everybody that real quick. I want to show you a few things first. This is what the series is going to be covering. Now, I want to remind you, it is in fact a multi-part series. There are 10 parts to this series, and it's because you need to get this in bite-sized doses to help you kind of understand what's going on, and that's what Susan's done for us so well. Look at your screen. In this 10-part series, tonight's first one, the mission of our court system and judicial independence and obligations. You can kind of go back and screenshot these as you go, but we're going to do them in bite-sized pieces for you, starting with this first broadcast. Let me show you Susan's book too, because I think it's very important that you, one, understand her book. The people that actually looked it up last time go, wow, this is fantastic. I need to get this book. This is a book written from being in the trenches. It's not theory. It's actually practicing in the system. And what I can tell you is if you can survive the New York system, you can survive anything. Susan, would you say that if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere?
I do think so. I think that's why I call it a blueprint, because it really does evidence what is transpiring throughout. And maybe they do a little bit of a better job of it in New York, or a little more, pizzazz to it.
It's definitely tough. So on tonight's broadcast, we title it Mission of Our Court System, Judicial Independence and Obligations. Susan, take us away. Where do we get started with this?
Where do we get started with this? Well, first of all, what are the three most important words in our Constitution, Jovan? You know what they are, right?
We the people.
That's right. We the people. So we the people. So our, that affirms that the government of the United States, who does it exist for? For we the people, for the citizens. So the same thing with our court system. The court system is there for us. Okay. Now we have gorgeous courthouses, right? I mean, beautiful courthouses, and we have beautiful libraries. And the judges, they dress with their black robes, and they have such an air of respect. And we call them honorable and your honor. And we stand up when they come in. But they are people. And sometimes we forget, and maybe they forget, that they're there to serve us. Right? So they're not above reproach. And as Benjamin Franklin said, it is the first responsibility of every citizen to question authority. And it is our duty also to criticize, as Sandra Day O'Connor recognized, it's our duty to criticize the judiciary because they're there for us.
It's an interesting thing. Manuel Pascal wrote, "No longer." People, it is about us, just like Dale said, but people right now are feeling that the courts are not paying attention to us. And this collision is going on at the same exact time with censoring. Rita has it right. Houston, we have a problem. So Susan, set this up for us. In this interesting mix that we're in history, because these are history-making moments at the time, how would you describe what's going on?
I describe what's going on is that the system was broken for a long time, but no one really heard the cries of the broken victims within the system. And there are so many, but just as now, when we have so many people, we don't know what to do. We're scattered, we're suffering, and we're not organized. So it's the same thing. And what happened is with this election, and when they went to the court, and when they sought redress for this wrong, what happened was the whole world, the whole country saw how broken our court system was. So it basically brought out the realities of how the court system was malfunctioning all along. Now, please you should take comfort in this. It's not over. There is hope. But in order to fix the election, we must first understand the court system, and we must fix the court system, because the court system is paramount. If we don't have an operating court system, we don't have a country, and we have no place to go to. And all of us within us, we have an innate sense of justice. And that's why we feel violated. All of us, we feel violated because we know within our mind, in our heart, in our soul, we have a sense of what's right and wrong, and it's not right what's happening.
So let me ask you a question. It was I Husky for You wrote these. If these judges cared about we the people, they would have obeyed the Constitution. Let's start there. Number one, with this SCOTUS stuff we've been hearing, did these guys ignore the Constitution, or are we just not seeing all the mechanism rights? Can there be other stuff matriculating up through the system that we're just not aware of? Set this tone for us, and then I want you to take us, how did all this judges systems begin with?
Well, as part of the series, and we'll get more into these things, but I'll tell you, I'm not surprised. I do think they failed us, but I'm not surprised. They take very few cases, but you have to ask, who are these judges, even on the Supreme Court? These judges, they're not taking great lawyers and scholars that are apolitical. Even though they have the appearance that they're apolitical, they are either directly or indirectly beholden to the political system. Take Amy Coney Barrett. She, I believe the report was over $27 million was raised for her to be nominated. The attorney bars, they had to approve, they recommend. Why did they do that? What's going on? What was the understanding? They're very political, these bar associations, these organizations. The senators have to approve. What's going on with them? What are the considerations? who would these judges be beholden to? Will it be to Jovan, to Susan, to all of us? Or would it be to the people who are ensuring that they make it to the Court of Appeals and then to the Supreme Court with a lifelong job? And so, number one, you have to say the process and how they get there. It's a very politicized one. And it's very, so when you think that you have such a fair selection, I say not, because there are a lot of great attorneys out there. There are a lot of people who sacrifice their lives for what's right, but they don't have a chance to get there. Why? Because they don't have anybody raising $27 million for them. Why is, they make like a couple of $100,000, but yet it costs $27 million.
I don't even think that I even understood that till just this moment. I never really thought about how much money is spent to get those judgeships. It never dawned on me, like when you said that $20 million to make sure they get their seat. Let's go back in time.
Yeah.
Judges was set up to be a pure, a fair, and a just format. Tell us how it began, and then just kind of take us through this journey where you see it in your career falling apart. Where did it really start to get corrupt?
Well, who was the first judge that you know
of? Moses.
Okay, very good. Yes. And Moses was, a judge. People came to him because he was supposed to be the man who was the most fair, but he couldn't handle all the cases. So his father-in-law said, Moses, you have to, Yisro said, you have to make lower courts. You have to get other judges involved, and, different issues will go to the lower courts. So a court system was established. And why was it established? Because they know in any society, you cannot have a society, you cannot have business, you cannot have a functioning society without a court system, right?
Right.
And actually, the Jewish law is funny. I mean, the American legal system is based on the English legal system, which has its roots in the Jewish legal system, like
right.
Injury, criminal law, the Fifth Amendment, not to incriminate yourself, due process, and contract law, so much. And it's very interesting, because this goes back to we the people. You have to understand the soul of this country. What's the soul of this country? Now, many people have spoken about it, but Rabbi David Saperstein, says it very well. He says that the founders of the country based their vision of America on Old Testament values. They abandoned the notion that people's rights accrue to them because of their politics, religion, or social status. In America, rights come from within. Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. We can say and worship the way we want, or we used to, and petition the government to redress grievances, and all rights are endowed by the Creator. This is the soul of our country. This is what we fought and died for.
Absolutely.
So we have to understand that. And just like, it's common sense. We all love sports. And there is no sports without a fair referee. Both teams want to have a fair referee, or else who's going to watch it, right?
Right.
So now the court system is established, and we have an amazing court system. Do you know the rules? When I had to fight corruption, what I deemed to be corrupt, and it looked so dark, I would hang on to the court system, to our rules, our laws, our Constitution, no matter how somebody wanted to strip it away, like with the Senate hearing, where all the rules and laws, I've seen that in the courthouse, but I hung on to each rule and law because so much thought went into it. It was about preserving our life, liberty, and happiness in each law. They were reasonable. They were moral. They weren't about political party. They were about we the people. So our legal system, the laws are amazing. Yes, we do need to have an overhaul and, have different people within our system and clean it up. And we'll talk about that. but we do have such a beautiful system. We don't need any more rules and laws. We have them all.
So let's, first, I'm doing a recap for the people that just joined in. Let me share with you a few things. I'm going to go back to my screen share. I want to make sure first you understand. Take a look, when you get a chance, take a look at Susan's book. It's called Unchecked Power Guide, the New York State Court System. If you want to really learn about the dirty underbelly of the court system, you need to take a look at it, because just as bad as you imagined it is maybe in the worst Batman movie, right? You think about corruption and stuff, it's corrupt, right? And so what we're doing is we're dealing with the 10 topics. We're going to cover these in short bits like this for you. And this is the first one, the mission of our court system, judicial independence and obligations. Susan, here's my question. From a historical perspective, I know that mankind's always been corrupt and courts can always been corrupted. When do you think, in your take on things as an attorney, when did the American court system really become possibly corrupt or past the point of no return to where we are now that we really have to fix it? When do you think that happened, and what made it happen that way?
So funny you should ask. Legal scholar Roscoe Pound said over 100 years ago,
wow,
compelling judges to become politicians has almost destroyed the traditional respect for the bench. What's changed in over 100 years? So at least going back over 100 years, but I think the level of corruption, what made our court system last so long is because we had the separation of powers.
Right.
When the separation of powers, and we will talk about that in other segments, when we lost that, and we have lost it, because when the other two branches, don't act the way they should, the legislatures and the executive branches, when they fail us, the court has to be the safe place that we can all turn to fix that. But if all three branches are beholden to the same political machine, you no longer have the separation of powers. And that's what has allowed us to last this long, is that those separation of powers, and they just became weaker and weaker. And I'll explain more of that.
So let's talk about this. Looking at it today, now most people are very fortunate. There's old Chinese proverb that says, we all should live in uneventful times. And basically what it means is it's very easy to get along in uneventful times. We are living in a big event and a crisis right now that is a shot heard around the world, especially with our election. A lot of this now questioning the court systems with how did our election go and what happened. The most money ever spent on an election, $14 billion. The most people supposedly that ever voted in an election, and the most mail-in ballots ever. So my first question to you is a very simple one, yes or no. And depending on how you answer it, I want to tell you how you would do it. Can we fix our court system?
Yes. But that, and I have a number of ways that the court system can be fixed, and that is part and parcel of fixing the election system. And if you want, I can get into that discussion. But I would think the first thing to understand is the mission of the court system. What is judicial independence? Because I think knowledge is power. So since this is going to be, in 10 parts, I think that everybody wants the answer. There are no shortcuts.
Right.
There are no shortcuts. We are all in this together, but we all have to understand what we're dealing with. We have to understand what system we have at play here.
So how was it you originally set up for judicial independence? What was it supposed to mean originally? What has it morphed into now?
Right. So, but before I address that, if you don't mind, I just want to say the mission is, and I have a present for you, because every state has a mission statement.
Right.
They're telling the people, This is our mission. So I have one from Arizona. I thought you may want me to read the mission statement.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, so it's to deliver the highest measure of justice by providing an accessible, impartial forum for the resolution of disputes with the consistent, just, efficient, and timely delivery of service to the bench, bar, public, and other entities with whom the courts interact. You know, all the issues that you have going on in Arizona, it's all related to the court system. There could be enforcement. When somebody doesn't want to follow the subpoena, they could enforce it in a courthouse. And when it's not being, when people aren't respecting the subpoena and aren't respecting court orders, you have to ask yourself, how do they know that? How are they so brazen that they know? You know, you can go to jail for that. You can be in contempt. You can ruin your life. How are they so brazen to do so?
It's because I think they just know they're not going to get punished. It's like it just doesn't matter anymore.
Right. So but that's the court system. You see, if the court system is operating, there would be consequences for not enforcing a subpoena or court orders. There are serious consequences. So it's a matter of enforcing it through our court system and holding the court system responsible.
Is there any remedy when a court just ignores it? I mean, some people feel that's what's going on right now. And if the judiciary was really independent, it would only just look at the laws and apply the law, right? But this is obviously, it's not independent, it's incestuously connected, and therefore it's to their benefit of their buddies to not enforce it. Is that what we're seeing?
Well, what we're seeing is, you know, we have a code of judicial conduct. That's the obligation part. And in my book, I have the one example of the code of judicial conduct. Every state has it. Federal has it. Judges have an obligation. So say you're before a trial court and the judge you went to is misbehaving, is not addressing the subpoena, is not enforcing court orders, right? Mm-hmm. Now, it shouldn't be up to us. This is what happened with the election. They left it for individuals to spend their own money and energy to fix the electoral process, where it wasn't individuals or the public's responsibility to do that. It was the responsibility of each state to make sure that a proper audit was done. And we shouldn't be begging for an audit or anything, because this is our right. And even when we presented the votes, the electoral votes before Pence, they would say this is regular. Each one would say this is a regular vote in appearance. And, you know, they would basically say this is not a fraudulent vote. So the precondition to any vote and acceptance of a vote is that it's not fraudulent. So when you have something, so when you're in the courthouse in Arizona or anywhere, and the judge is misbehaving, right? And so judicial independence is not to protect the judge who misbehaves. Judicial independence is to say, when a judge is acting in good faith and following the rules and the laws, he has to have independence to, without fear or favor, make a decision, a fair decision for the outcome of that case. But when a judge engages in misconduct, he cannot hide behind the cloud of judicial independence. Right then and there, someone needs to intervene. It could be the administrative judge. It could be the appellate division through Article 78, where they could overturn certain things that a judge, or force a judge to act appropriately. But what happens is you're in a system where there's a lot of people that may be not acting appropriately, and a lot of offices that aren't functioning well. But the way I look at it, the way I understand it, is when there is a lot of corruption, first of all, it always comes from the top down. They usually want to say it's some judge here or some judge there, but I always look to the top down.
Right.
House.
Right. I think that's kind of what we're seeing. We saw this going on when everything was against the president, and it started, and they were threatening, and now we're seeing it's just lockstep, go, just open up the floodgates and go. How, when a society like ours realizes that their judiciary is not independent, what are the tools and the resources that we, the people, have? What can we, the people, do to force the system to call these guys out and get them to comply? Is there anything we can do at all?
Okay, so we have the rules and we have the offices, but if they're hijacked or compromised, it's hard. We have to try and break through that. So we have, there's the Judicial Ethics Committee and the Legal Ethics Committee. And I have the Code of Judicial Conduct that we can go through and what a judge's obligations are. You know, I mean, you look at the Flynn case and all, you look at other things, and you look at judges who don't enforce their own orders. Clearly, that's in violation of the Code of Judicial Conduct. Clearly, the Commission on Judicial Conduct should address it. But if those two offices are compromised, it's like having the Justice Department, the FBI compromised. Any kind of crime can be committed within the courthouse. But the first thing is to understand. First, let's understand, because, you know, when you deal with corruption also, Jovan, you have to, it's sort of like a chess game in many ways. It looks overwhelming, you know. Washington had hardly any ammunition. They were naked and bare, and we're here today. I mean, we can overcome things no matter how hard they are. And when you look at corruption, it's a lot of links in a chain. So when, say, there are people who have a corrupt structure, right, and there's a lot of links in the chain. Say the head judge, for example, would be corrupted or compromised or have an agenda, and he says, "Oh, you guys have to act a certain way." There's a lot of links in the chain. So what does that mean? Well, not everybody. If take the election, if it was compromised at the top, and Secretary of State was told to act a certain way, and this one was told to act a certain way, each one represents a link in a chain for that corruption to manifest. So you have to break that chain, because every link has its own vulnerability. And there could be judges that don't want exposure, that want to, you put all that sunlight on that judge. You make sure that every hearing is public. Mm-hmm. Everything has to be public.
Look at Rita's question here. Who can make lodge, file a complaint, and can it be a private citizen? Yeah. You said oversight and review. Are those separate parts in local government? Let's just use Arizona, because we've been talking Arizona. But what could somebody do in Arizona right now that's watching to help out, to force the judges, to force the people comply? What would be the steps? Okay,
so first of all, if a judge is not acting properly, you could flood the Judicial Ethics Office with complaints. You have a right to complain.
No, that's a separate office.
That's a separate, right. So what you have is, but it's really through the court system.
Okay.
These offices. Okay. So, because these two offices are so important. You have the pillars of a building.
Right.
These pillars of a building. These are the guards at the door. If the Judicial Ethics Office is an office, and the Attorney Ethics Office is an office, both of them are saying, hey, if judges and lawyers are acting unethically, engaging in misconduct or criminal activities, you come here, you complain to me, and you complain to us, and they have to answer, and they have to respond if it's acting appropriately, and we will stop the corruption, we will stop the misconduct, we will address it. If it's not acting appropriately, it will dismiss the complaints, it will protect them, and it will target the attorneys or judges that seek redress. And it could target litigants in their cases as well in certain ways. So do you understand how important these two offices are?
I do. And does somebody just Google it locally? What are the keywords here? Is it just court ethics or ethics bureau? I mean, what is it? Well, how would just an everyday person find this who's not involved in the law, but at least they got a computer and they can hop on it? What are they going to be looking for? And who are they trying to find the name of? How do they do that?
You know what? In every courthouse, and first of all, on the web, unless they take it down after we discuss
Right.
it, there's an organizational chart. Every state
Of the courthouse.
Of the courthouse.
Okay.
So you have, I even have it in my book. I'm trying to find the page with it. But basically here, I found, it's like an organizational chart. And it's very important, this organizational chart, because I had it, now I don't. Basically, it shows the different offices.
Right.
And so part of that office, you have the administrative judge. The administrative judge is responsible for those offices, right?
But that's not the judge we see sitting in the court. That's
No.
just the manager of all the judges in the building. Is that how we would put it?
Well,
Layman's terms?
The head administrative judge of the whole court will manage the court system within, say, New York State or Arizona. And then you have within each courthouse, administrative judges within, like, Queens County or Kings County or different counties, and they basically report, they are the ones who are supposed to be supervising their courts. And according to the Code of Judicial Responsibility, they have an obligation to deal with a judge who's engaging in misconduct. If the rules are enforced, they have that obligation. So they don't want you to go to the administrative judge. Believe me, one thing they want to do.
So that's what they're trying to avoid. They don't want to get on that person's radar. Is that what you're saying?
I think more than anything, there's protection of the system in place. So they would rather lose a few people, let them get exposed, and then they'll retire. Nothing really ever seems to happen to these judges or lawyers. And so they retire, but the system in place that protects and targets is protected. So if you go to the administrative judge, basically you're piercing that system, because you're saying, hey, I'm not going to only stay in this litigation and waste years before a judge who's not acting right. I'm seeking to pierce this. I'm seeking oversight, and I'm going to go to the administrative judge. And then there's pressure on the administrative judge, and people start looking at the administrative judge, which they would not have looked at. Do you understand?
So let me ask a question. For citizens, the most important thing be to start calling these administrative judges in their areas, or to start a letter writing campaign?
Yes.
What would they do to get this on radar? Now, I'm assuming they're going to have to, if somebody out there, you're watching this, you're worried about what's going on in your area, you want to hold these judges and these courts responsible. First, they're going to have to know what they're talking about. They're going to have to know the case or what it is, so they can say, hey, judge, this case so-and-so, right? But is it just as simple as starting a letter, or, as some people are saying, is that just a waste of time?
I want to say something about waste of time. I never look at it like that. You know why? Because look, even if somebody's sick and they feel they can't make it, it's not a waste of time to try your best. So first of all, it's never a waste of time to do what is right, regardless of the results. You're never guaranteed the result. And if you don't do it, you'll never know if you can get that result. And if you do it in mass, if you do it in we the people style, that we are not accepting this, and pressure is put on through writing letters to the administrative judges all the way up, and specifically saying this is what's happening. And very, very important is to keep every hearing public, that everybody knows exactly how the judge is acting, to expose it, and to never let the facts change, to maintain your record. When you walk into court, and I didn't know we were going to get into all these, but it's very important. regardless. But when you walk into court, I look at it like this. Your case is an onion. You don't let them peel that onion. When you come into court with such important matters, right? What happens is a few things happen. If the judge is engaging in misconduct, you spend all your time, money, and energy and years of your life trying to get fair access to the court and dealing with his misconduct, and your entire case is swept to the side. Everything's rendered moot. And years go by, and here you are, just you get a little appellate division decision, just to send it back to the trial court to do one thing better. But meanwhile, nothing ever changes, and your whole case, the reason why you were in court, has been sideswiped because the judge is acting with misconduct and nobody is addressing it, and you don't have any fair access to the court. So that's number one. Number two, when I say your case is like an onion, many times it's sort of what they did with the election. They basically changed the facts. You never, ever let them change your facts for you. You keep your record clear. So if they try and change the story, you say, no, this is my story. I want it made sure that it's on the record. And you go to the appellate division and you make sure that your record has not been taken from you. They do not change because what you have in each trial court is you have a transcript.
Right.
When you go to the appellate division, that's your record. If the record becomes about something else and not what the facts of your case are, then the appellate division will say, I'm sorry, we're bound by the record. And, your whole case has been hijacked.
Right. So let's go. I'm going to go on a final question. We'll wrap up this particular segment this evening. People are asking, and it's only because it's everybody's top of mind, but let me kind of find one here. Should we be writing letters to AGs? And the number one question I saw tonight is just like Daly and other people did. What about SCOTUS administrative judge? In closing tonight on this particular segment one of this 10-part series, because it's at people's top of mind, what can they do actively right now to complain to the Supreme Court?
I want to say that I'm not giving legal advice.
Right.
I have to make that clear. And I'm only saying what I would do as a citizen who's aggrieved. And I would yes, with the Supreme Court, there are departments there to deal with complaints. There are, in every office, there are, but it has to be, I guess, organized. People don't know who to write to and how to, and every state is a little different. So I think what should be done is to look at the offices and maybe have a form letter as to what's going on to help people. And then, that's one way to proceed to address this. And I wanted to ask you, did you, do you feel that clarified anything, or do you feel you seem, like it's perplexing, right? The whole system to you? Do you? Well,
for me personally, and I consider myself a smart person,
yeah.
It never dawned on me. This was very sobering for me in this first segment. It never dawned on me, even the Amy Comey Barrett's and stuff of the world, that tens of millions of dollars was spent to get them that seat. I guess I naively thought it was on merit and skill. And it should be, I guess, but I think that just kind of hit me like a sobering tidal wave of bricks, that reality is when constituents or whatever spend 10, 20, 30 million dollars to get you to that seat, how can you not be beholding? And if in fact you're supposed to be independent, and I think what we're seeing in these states is they're truly not independent. I think I'm just sitting here with the sobering reality of we need to fight at a different level, and we need to fight a different way. right?
Yeah.
A mail carrier can, and I'm going to give you a tip here because most people have never done the math, and I'm one of the weirdos that have done the math. A mail carrier can only carry 35 pounds of mail, just so you understand that. And it's because union laws, nobody wants to strain their ovaries or anything like that. So they can only carry a 35-pound bag of mail. However, if you do the math and you look at mail as just a singular letter, a letter campaign, writing campaign of just 1 million letters is actually 2,945 trips of bags of mails by the post office to that one source. And so that's what you see me running through my mind is I'm thinking here, you know what I got to do? I've got to go scour these sites. I see the questions. I need to create a mechanism where people can click and it's done and boom, and we can start hitting these judicial review committees or ethic committees with notifications to basically say, wake the hell up, because it's about us, we the people.
And they should have to answer each of the complaints.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I think, you know, basically, I'm glad I asked you that because you really summed up our first whole, the mission of our court system, judicial independence, and the judicial obligations in a nutshell when you spoke about your realization of, you know, you seem very disheartened by it.
I am. I'd never thought about that because I'm telling you, I naively thought people, the biggest lie in the world is judges aren't biased, but you do hope you want to get the best people that will follow the rule of law.
Right.
But I think I just never really thought of that way, of the tens of millions that are spent to get those people there. Right. That's it. So I want to remind everybody real quick, this is a 10-part series. That's what you're watching tonight. This was part 1, mission of our court system and judicial independence and obligations. The next series we do, which we're going to try to do these as quick as we can in succession, is how we choose our judges and other branches of government. Susan, thank you so very much. Everybody, thank you. People are saying that, yeah, they too thought it was based on merit. I consider myself a smart guy.
They will claim it's based on merit, that she's worthy and all, but you have to look at the process, you know.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Susan, for joining us tonight, and I appreciate it. Folks, we're going to be back with the second module for all of you. Do us a favor, please. Will you please share this for your friends and family? We're going to try to break this all down for you, help you understand what's going on so you can actually use this information with families, with friends, everybody else, because we have to get educated on this. They've stopped teaching this stuff in our schools. Thank you very much. Thanks for tuning in. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.